after Tom retired from the, or didn't retire, he had been in World War II and been shot up pretty bad. He was in a ship that had been hit, and he was in pretty bad shape. But when he got out, he went back to Illinois and they started farming, or a tenant on a farm. And that really was not his calling, you might say. And so he decided that they would go out and be with Dick and Irma out in the Seattle area. They got out there and he worked in a paper mill, Tom did, and of course Betty she was an accountant and worked in a bank, and her daughter's named Paula, after Paul. Of course Paula and Betty were over at our wedding too. They came over to our wedding. Tom was still out in the service. Tom, he was good. We played golf together, and we'd go visit him all the time. John was, of course, his second husband. He had been a Marine, which I thought that was okay, you know. He was a corporal, of course. When he got out of the service, he amassed some property, and he got a couple of oil stations going, and was pretty well set there, you know. So they built him a new home. The state went through one of his filling stations and had to buy him out, so he'd taken that money and they had torn down the filling station and had salvaged all of the Indiana limestone and all that. So they built a very lovely home out on a very small lake. He also had a Thunderbird at that time that was real. In fact, John and Ruth had a new car about every time you turned around, you know, and any time I would fly in here, why, John would always meet me at the airport and give me keys to any of his cars, and I'd drive up to Mom and Dad's up here in Indiana. Oh, he was a great guy. You might think that I like cars, but not as much as I like my wife, I understand, but maybe second or third down. After my kids and my wife, I guess, would be car. Let's see, at that time we had our main transportation was that Oldsmobile station wagon, which was a mainstay, and we just kept it and kept it and kept it and kept it over the centuries, I believe. But when we got out there in California on our second tour, why, I bought a little Volkswagen to run back and forth to the base in, and left Juanita with the station wagon. And for some reason or other, that I got an opportunity to pick up another little Volkswagen Bug, and I sold that one to Winnie Pratt, I think. And so we had that new 63 Volkswagen. And I think the kids took that up to the mountains. Glorieta. And had it up there. Had a great time with it, I guess. Then when Tom started to drive, he wrecked that car, you know, on about his first date. And but we got that all repaired, and it was just a beautiful little Volkswagen. Well, after I retired there and from the military and started to work for Ford Aeronutronics, well, I got a 1966 blue Mustang. The senior engineers got one every 6 months, so they'd turn their old one in and it would be on the block there. And I bought it really cheap, and the kids got to driving that, and so that left us where we had to get some Cougars. So I picked up a couple of Cougars in there too, XR7s. When we'd drive back here to Indiana, and we was out in the pasture there, and I had one of Dad's old horses out there, kind of a Mustangish, come up alongside of that car, and I'd left the window rolled down in it, and he stuck his head in there and took a bite out of that leather upholstery on the, and I was nearby and grabbed a big club and started after that horse, and he turned and kicked, and he just kicked the side of that car in by just inches, you know. Dang those horses, you know. But they were the mainstay of that country, of our farm, you know, because all the kids, they loved the animals out there.
Yeah.
During my junior and senior year in high school, that summer, Dad let me off the farm, and I went to this citizens military training camp. If you attended that for 4 years, well, you got a commission. And so I went up to Fort Sheridan, Illinois that summer and was in the cavalry unit up there. You know, some of those kids are there, they'd never seen a horse, and I'd had one all my life. I was raised with horses, saddle horses, and work horses, both. So, yeah, I had horses in my life for a long time.
Dad had a lot of ponies and always had horses when I was growing up. I think that's one of the things that I really missed when I got married, I left and I never came back, only for summers. And I think that the grandchildren all remember those ponies. Talking about horses, my mother was with her mother in Lafayette, and they were in the buggy. They had come in the buggy. And she was used to really macking that horse and go. And all at once, right there in town, Sylvia said, "Get up," you know, and I guess it was almost a runaway in that town. I mean, she was used to wanting her horses to really go. And she rode. She was a good rider. One time my mother and two other ladies, they were sisters, and they were in a riding club together. And they decided they were going to enter this contest to ride from Delphi, Indiana, to Indianapolis. And they did. And it's, 60 miles probably, which may not be an awful lot, but they did. They got ready and they rode and they would stop at a likely house maybe, and some of the farmers would let them stay overnight. And then they would start out the next day, and they made it all the way to Indianapolis. I think they didn't win, but for coming the most miles, but they did place, I believe.